Hello everybody, I'm Solathalion, and welcome back to my Wings of Fire book review series. Some housekeeping before we start. I have a bunch of stuff that I want to talk about regarding this series, as well as other Wings of Fire content I want to do on this channel. And I'm going to do videos on those before I move into the second arc of the review series. I also have decided to shift the tier list around a little bit. After thinking on it, I realized that I need to move The Lost Era and the Dragonette Prophecy down to C tier. I haven't changed my opinions on these books at all, I just need another tier in between them and the tier where Hidden Kingdom is. Without further ado, let's get into it. This video will be covering Book 5, The Brightest Night, which is told from the perspective of the Sandwing of the prophecy, Sunny. Alright, The Brightest Night, the final book in the first arc of the series. I like a lot of the elements in this book, in some cases just as much as The Dark Secret. Unfortunately, it contains a handful of sections that leave me with a bad taste in my mouth. I would generally describe this book as one that has high highs and low lows. Sunny's arc is one example of this. I really like the premise and its conclusion, but it was mishandled in a couple of spots, and I'll get into it later. The prologue is quite good. I adore world building in this series, so seeing the lead up to the event that caused the War of the Sandwing Succession is quite cool. I also like how it emphasizes that Blister's conniving, and that scavengers are important to the story. With that out of the way, let's start at the beginning of the end. Part 1. The Shifting Sands. Shockingly, Book 5 once again picks right up where Book 4 ended off. Sort of. It starts right after Marozir reveals that the prophecy is false, and Sunny is shown reeling from it. Her arc in The Brightest Night differs from the character arcs in the other perspective books. Most of those arcs deal with one of the Dragonettes undergoing some growth that changes them, such as Books 2 and 4, or learning something about themselves and figuring out their place in the world, like Books 1 and 3. Book 5, on the other hand, deals with Sunny learning how to not let the reveal of the prophecy being false change who she is, as well as figuring out her feelings towards Starflight, and later, her own background. Despite how different it is, I still think that it is quite good, and it really makes sense for Sunny as a character. The thing that irks me about it is more the setup for it, which I talked about in the previous video. It relies once again on separation from the other Dragonettes, unfortunately in a way that feels just as contrived as it did in the first two books. The Nightwing kidnapping is fine, but she more or less escapes them instantly and then follows them 2 separate times when she should have just chosen to go back. I understand wanting to take the Obsidian Mirror out of their hands, but once she gets it, why not at that point just go back? I think that the reasons Sunny feels in her mind that she has to aren't really too good. To be frank, I just don't love it. Despite that, there are a couple of elements that I do like during the sneaky chasing sequence. For one, Sunny's ingenuity is shown when she writes the message in the mud, which I enjoy. It also foreshadows Darkstalker, when Prey Hunter and Strongwings kind of freak out at the message. I also enjoy the detail of the Obsidian Mirror feeling creepy, and I kinda wish Animus Magic maintained that same sort of sinisterness throughout the series, but I feel like this is kind of the only time that it does. Once Sunny arrives at the Scorpion Den, things start getting a little more interesting. I instantly like the Outclaws, even before Sunny is able to step a foot into the den. The guard noticing her when she was hiding, and the reference to Thorn creates a cool sense of foreboding. When Six Claws brings Sunny in, we see that the Scorpion Den is obviously a dangerous place, but that the Outclaws are more of a force for good. Six Claws kind of serves as a representative of that, spooky on the outside, but a good dragon on the inside. Thorn is a fantastic character, and is sort of like a complete opposite to Coral. She cares deeply about the people living in the den, shown by the Oasis meals, as well as going to try and put out the flames around the orphanage herself. The reveal of her being Sunny's mother is an amazing moment. It's a nice breath of fresh air that at least one of the Dragonettes actually has a good parent. Yeah, that's right, Coral doesn't count. Kibli is also introduced here. He's obviously important in the second arc, and it's cool that he's introduced here, but in this book he's not really that important or interesting, just kind of a named soldier incredibly loyal to Thorn. His place in this book serves as setup for his own character later in Arc 2, as well as to show more of Thorn's care for those in the den, given how she saved him from his mother and siblings. Sunny is reinforced to be incredibly sympathetic and empathetic in this section, which, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is something that I really appreciate. Prey Hunter's death is a complex moment, because obviously he's there to try and sell Sunny to burn, but the actions that resulted in his death were legitimately in self-defense. Sunny herself even tells Thorn that she wished she hadn't killed him. When she's eventually captured by Addax, she even feels for him. The way the part ends exemplifies her character, when after all of the craziness with worrying about Ostrich and the Outclaws, she realizes that she might be the one actually in danger. Part 2. Byrne's Stronghold. This section is shockingly slow going, and doesn't feel nearly as tense as it should, considering whose palace Sunny ends up stuck in. It doesn't feel that boring when reading it though. It does a good job of reintroducing Scarlet, although she still feels like a cartoon villain despite how menacing she is. It also does a good job of building up Sunny's character, through her interactions with those in the palace like Camel, as well as Smolder and Flower. Smolder is a really interesting character, both because of his relationship to Byrne as well as his pet. I like the detail of him letting a mouse live earlier in the section because Flower likes them. Sunny's interactions with Flower are also really wholesome, and she plays a very important role in the conclusion of this book. In Sunny's conversation with Smolder about the death of Queen Oasis, the Eye of Onyx is mentioned for the first time, foreshadowing a very important plot element to the ending of the arc. This part also confirms that Byrne is a certified freak. The Weirdling Tower is super unnerving and freaky. The whole thing with the heads on the walls of the stronghold is creepy, and the extra walls sort of emphasize the newfound sort of wariness of scavengers. Speaking of which, the connection that Flower is one of the ones that killed Queen Oasis is quite cool. As a side note, I have read Dragon Slayer. I'll talk about it in an upcoming video. Keep in mind that the mainline books I'm reviewing in a vacuum, but when I do reviews for the Legends books, I'll take into account their connections to the mainline series. I think that the escape of the Stronghold also adds to why I feel that there just isn't much tension. Thorn comes to get Sunny, which is a nice moment and serves as an inspiration to Sunny later to end the war, despite the prophecy being false. Peril also reappears here, and is the reason that Sunny is able to escape, and her bit of exposition here is important for her reappearance both in this book as well as in Arc 2. The reason this escape doesn't carry a lot of tension is because after Peril ends the fight, Thorn and Sunny just mill around and explore a bit. I get why, for a plot reason, it's to re-establish Thorn's interest in an unknown Nightwing, and then do the whole reveal that Sunny is a hybrid, but it just feels kind of silly and unrealistic that they would just let themselves be captured by Smolder again. Speaking of Sunny being a hybrid, it's honestly a really good reveal. It sets up a cool parallel between her and her mother, mirrored by Starflight and Stonemover. It also sets up another internal conflict that helps to strengthen her own arc. Stonemover being mentioned here is also pretty cool. It ties up the loose end of the mysterious Nightwing animus when it is revealed that he's the one who actually built the tunnels. When Smolder traps them again, the letter that Thorn finds is kinda sad, but it's overall a good moment. Also, I like that even though he trapped them again, Smolder actually wasn't lying about there being a letter to Thorn in there, just another thing that I like about his character. While they're trapped, Thorn trusts Sunny enough to do small flames on the door in order to burn it to let them escape. While I hate every single moment when her friends ignore her and don't trust her, I do like this scene. It establishes just how good of a character Thorn is, especially to her daughter. Sunny finally makes the decision to leave and go back to her friends, which is done at a time that makes sense. Thorn's understanding is nice here. I like how she parallels Sunny with her care for the Outclaws and those living in the den. On her way back, Sunny is forced to land at Jade Mountain due to a storm, and makes the decision to meet her father. Stonemover is properly introduced here, and I'm not quite sure what to think about him. Being forced to use his magic for the Nightwings and his belief that Thorn didn't want him is definitely a little rough, but he's a bit too mopey for my liking, and unlike Thorn and Sunny, is resigned to the way that things are rather than seeking to change them. I like this from a plot perspective though, the reason which we will talk about in a second. He also reinforces the fact to Sunny that the prophecy is false, something that she had been trying to avoid. This is an important step in her arc. When she sleeps at night, a random scavenger of no particular importance dream visits Sunny, from when she had looked around the den earlier. She's able to identify where that scavenger den is, and realizes that if they have the dream visitor, they might have the Eye of Onyx. This drags her back to her senses and gives her another goal, another possible way she could end the war, even without a prophecy backing her up. Part 3. The Eye of Onyx. On her way to the scavenger den and while waiting there, Sunny does a lot of self-reflection that is great for her arc. For one, she still wishes that the prophecy was real, but at this point has come to terms with the fact that it isn't. She acknowledges that she is less confident than she was when she believed in it, and wants that confidence back. That being said, she aims to accomplish something like her mother, and not mope around and settle for the way things are like her father. I love how her parents serve as driving forces for her in these two opposite ways here. Despite how much I dislike separation in this series, I do have to acknowledge that the character growth accomplished by it in most of the books is usually quite good. After Sunny waits for a while at the den, she meets two scavengers there. I really enjoyed the scene with Sunny negotiating with the scavengers to get the treasure back, even before I read Dragon Slayer. I think that it's cool that scavengers are shown to not be brainless creatures here, and this is the first time we see this outside of Flower, but I guess would be considered more domesticated or something, I don't know. Scavengers as a species slowly get growth as the series go on, and this is one of the big jumps that we see. The scene ends with Sunny finding both the Dream Visitor as well as the Lazulite Dragon, but not the Eye of Onyx. The Dream Visitor that Sunny gets here is the one that the Dragonettes hold onto for the rest of the series, and comes into play multiple times throughout each of the arcs, so that's pretty important. Sunny reuniting with her friends is a nice moment, but given how her separation is a result of her own actions, it doesn't have the same impact that Starflight's does in the previous book. That being said, as usual, having the usual interactions between the Dragonettes, as well as Fatespeaker and Deathbringer, is nice. The moment also establishes just how much they care for her, something that Sunny herself acknowledges with Tsunami. I do find it strange the little pangs of jealousy and annoyance that she has against Fatespeaker, but maybe it's still just her trying to figure out her own feelings towards Starflight. Sunny gets all of the Dragonettes together to discuss where she's been, and the ensuing conversation I have mixed feelings about. I love them acknowledging something that they should have accepted in the previous book, that despite the prophecy being false, they still are in a position where people are relying on them. I like them coming around here, but then it just instantly blows up when everyone starts ignoring Sunny again, until she finally just screeches at them. I've already made note of this annoying me in the Dark Secret, so I won't talk about it more here. When they finally go along with their plan, it just feels empty. I think that it's because it isn't a result of Sunny's arc that they come around, just that they finally decide to actually listen to her because she screeches at them. She shouldn't have to screech at them, and they should have been listening to her since book effing 3. It's just one of the things in this book that sour it a bit for me. I really like this final stretch of the book, with the gathering of the Sandwing sisters and the ending of the war. It begins with Tsunami and Sunny trying to connect to Pyria's favorite idiots, the Talons of Peace, so they can get a message to Blister. Ochre is still the worst character in this entire series, and Nautilus is still a dope, so nothing new there. I like seeing Riptide again, and I appreciate Tsunami's view on the relationship, that she has more important things to worry about, and that she'll figure stuff out with him after the war. Flame reuniting with his mother is really nice, and him being a mama's boy just adds to me finding him unintentionally hilarious. I like that Jambu and Mangrove are put in charge of getting the message to Blaze. It keeps them relevant in the story, and is also good payoff from the Hidden Kingdom. The Comet is brought up here, which obviously sets up many key plot elements in Arc 2. The whole event with Sunny, Clay, and the Mudwings is outstanding, and probably my favorite moment from this book. I love Mudwing world building, given how interesting the tribe is and how little we get it, and this part is chock full. Queen Moorhen is a really fascinating character, as well as her siblings, and the scene with Sunny dream visiting them is incredible. Sunny and Clay get great development throughout this section, and Clay getting to meet his siblings again is fantastic. I love Sunny reinforcing Clay's arc from the first book, that he is she and her friend's bigwings. Her empathy also really gets put to good use during these dream visits, and Sunny being Sunny is likely one of the only reasons that they are able to prevent what would be a devastating battle. The scene also just shows how capable they are despite the prophecy not being real. They accomplish this insane task without the promise of a prophecy backing them up. It's great. The Mudwings all singing the Dragonettes of Destiny song at the end is a little bit cheesy, but it once again re-emphasizes just how many dragons are relying on them. I don't have a ton to say about Sunny dream visiting Blaze after this, she's a complete moron, but it was a good recovery from Sunny and it does fit with Blaze's character. I really like the end of the book. It's cool seeing dragons from every tribe together, and it's great seeing the Dragonettes together again. Sunny's little rousing speech is cute, and I love the confirmation of the Dragonettes' relationship. I like how tense the entire scene is, with stuff going south the second Blister shows up. She outsmarts Burn's outsmarting, and the second Viper ends up killing Burn. Her death here makes me realize just how little we actually see of Burn before she croaks. Clay saving Starflight is a good callback to the Dark Secret, and the page or two where he's dying slowly are really tense and heartbreaking, especially with Sunny and Glory's reactions. Peril swooping in to save the day is a great moment, both just in general as well as for her character. Looking back, it's kind of crazy to me how many times that Peril legitimately saves the day for the Dragonettes, between the Sky Palace, Sunny, and now saving Clay's life. This moment for Peril is also what builds her up to be an important part of the second arc as well. After all of this insanity, Blister makes a show of fighting Blaze, which I think fits her character and also shows her flaw of cockiness at this point. The final few pages of the book are insane, and everything happens really fast. During the fight, Smolder comes over and he gets a bit more exposition, which I like. He brings Flower with him, who begins digging up Queen Oasis. I like that Sunny's friends finally freaking trust her enough at this point to dig alongside her, and the reveal that Flower was digging up the Eye of Onyx is awesome. Sunny handing the eye to her mother is great, and the line "Fourth Moons and Fireballs" still lives rent-free in my head to this day. I love Blister's final lines. The reveal that her conniving led to both her mother's death as well as the war in the first place is both really cool and also makes sense. The end of the book is also hilarious. I love Blister grabbing the eye and then just blowing up, and Clay's final "What did I miss?" is really funny. The epilogue is a really great send-off for the first arc. It sets up the whole premise of the second, and introduces or mentions some of the future students, such as Moon and Umber. It concludes Sunny's arc, solidifying her relationship with Starflight as that of a sister, and also kind of setting him up with Fate Speaker in a way. It also emphasizes the dragons that died in order for all of this to happen, even though all of the main dragonettes survived. Finally, it sets up that Scarlet left Peril and is missing, leading up to her role in the second arc. To conclude, The Brightest Night is a book that is mostly fantastic, but has a few elements in it that I just really can't overlook, because they break my immersion in a world that I'm normally quite locked in on. They aren't really minor nitpicks like the past books had, and sort of tarnish what would have otherwise been an S-tier book in my mind. Example of these include just kind of milling around Byrne's stronghold, the premise for Sunny's separation, and the lack of the other dragonettes listening to Sunny in situations where they definitely should be. That being said, I still think the good outweighs the bad. Smolder, Thorn, Sixclaws, and even Flower are all really great characters with good amounts of depth and quite compelling stories. Sunny herself has slowly worked her way into one of my favorite characters in the series, with how empathetic and caring she is. I think that our arc is really well done, despite some of the flaws with its early setup. The conclusion to the arc itself is satisfying, while still maintaining the charm that this series does well. Maybe you already figured it out by my changing around of the tiers, but The Brightest Night will be going in the now empty B tier, below the Hidden Kingdom, but above the Lost Heir and the Dragonette Prophecy. While the lows are lower than the C tier books, the highs are so much higher that I can't put it in the same tier as the first two. Thank you for watching the first 5 books in the series. I've had a ton of fun doing this, and I'm looking forward to continuing to make these. The next video on the channel will not be a book review, however. I have something else in mind that's still Wings of Fire related. I hope to see you there. Until then, have a good one.